Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I have a surprise stream on a Tuesday night. Yes, the Willie Bragg Show will always be on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, posted schedule wise. Why is there a Willie Bragg Show at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, Braglands was supposed to be on the air tonight, earlier this evening, and we have some difficulties. So we're going to have Braglands tomorrow at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So we promise there will be a Braglands tomorrow. There will not be a Willie Bragg show tomorrow night at 8 p.m. That 8 p.m. show is now at 11 p.m. because I had some breaking news. And while I have a little bit of free time for myself, I figured, why not? Let me go ahead and share this video. So I'm doing that as sort of a makeup for earlier today. And there will be a continuity of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, be it what it is. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. I don't know if I made any sense, but I hope everybody's doing well just the same. So we have here on the chat line with us, we have Miguel, and we have, and great seeing you, Miguel. We have Desert Mantis. Great. I tune in while the last minute prep is underway. Great seeing you here as well. Always, always. We have here, I have not seen, I think I haven't seen you in quite a while. Sakudo, yo, how are you doing today? And I hope everybody's doing well. So anyhow, let's see. Let me see what Desert Manson says. I'm glad I'm still have my subscription to the TV guy, Willie Face Orange TV shape. Okay. All right. Am I orange? I hope not. I hope not. But speaking of orange, see, all the real ones know about Willie Bragg. Well, I'm trying to spread my word out. So there is that. So yeah, it's been a while. So busy with corrupt LA politics. Yeah, I've heard about that with LA politics being what it is. So, suffice to say, everyone, I hope everybody's doing well today. And let's get underway with the subject at hand. As you all know, George W. Bush decided to endorse Kamala Harris. It's probably not a surprise about that, but you got all the shit libs out there. They're just having an orgasm. They're like, yes, George W. Bush and a bunch of other Republicans, they're endorsing the Democrats. They're evolving. No, what's happening is when George W. Bush comes to the Democrats, it means that the Democrats have gone to the right. Donald Trump is awful, but he's to the left of George W. Bush. How hard is this it is to explain? And I'm not just talking about the blue MAGA folks, the red MAGA folks who are sorry that they defended George W. Bush over, for a decade after he left office. My God, even with them, George W. Bush is more with them on policy than than Donald Trump is. How difficult is it to believe? This is not a defense of Donald Trump. This is just calling it out like I see in it. Why are people not logical about this? The big nucleus or the pulse of the MAGA movement. It's not Donald Trump. It's whoever is the head of the Republican Party at the moment. The people who are the most obnoxious, vile section of the Trump supporters today were giving blowjobs. They were allowing George W. Bush and Dick Cheney to face fuck them 20 years ago. How difficult is it to How difficult is it to explain to these people on all sides? Have they lost their have they lost their mind? Are they insane? I mean, George W. Bush responsible for the death of over 1 million Iraqis. These people had nothing to do with 9/11. There were no weapons of mass destruction. 9/11 happened. We went and attacked the wrong country. We went in there, and not only was it bad for the people in the Middle East, it was bad for the United States. We had a U.S. government that started spying on us. And, and each new administration afterwards decided to take these spying powers, and they started taking the national security state, and boy, oh boy, they started reading 1984 by George Orwell and taking it to heart. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney are the reason why we've been on this slow road, not as slow as people think, but we've been on this creeping road toward authoritarianism, this casual road that we are on right now toward totalitarianism, toward Big Brother, toward 1984. 1984 is no longer a fiction. It's becoming a reality. You got George W. Bush to thank for this. And what do the liberals do? They go around and they're like, George W. Bush, he's a swell guy now, Now the Trump people on the right, they go around and act like he's the second coming of Christ, Donald Trump. And they, the evangelical Christians, they're acting even with them. Look at them. Any Republican, because Democrats are just evil in their eyes, and they criticize Democrats for the wrong reason. But to them, the Democrats are all evil, and anything that's not a Republican is evil. And that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. So you got the Republicans and the evangelicals who vote Republicans who think that the Democrats are all evil. 20 years ago, it was George W. Bush. Then it became John McCain. Then it became Mitt Romney. Then it became Donald Trump the following 3 times. And when it becomes Nikki Haley in the future, or when it becomes Ron DeSantis in the future, or if it becomes whatever Republican rising star it is, whether it's a Rhino style Republican or whether it's Tom Cotton or whomever, the evangelical is going to look and say, well, we can't have those evil Democrats win because, whatever, that's who's the head of MAGA. MAGA did not just come into being because Donald Trump said, hey, make America great again. That's what it comes down to. So I am not impressed with this. Jimmy Dore said in 2018 that the liberals hated Ralph Nader because he supposedly gave us George W. Bush. Now that the liberals love George W. Bush, they managed to still hate Ralph Nader. If that is not what's happening, it's happening. And what happens as a result? What Jimmy Dore is basically saying, and it's true, America shifts further and further to the right. I talked about this recently about normalizing George W. Bush, and here I am having to go and make another video about this. It's almost like I'm having to repeat myself, but we need to discuss this. We really do. So there you have it. And I'll give you to illustrate what I'm talking about, to illustrate that finer point about George W. Bush and what it means to normalize George W. Bush. What it means. And I created this, I've worked on this meme. I've actually created many variations of this meme. And let me go ahead and do this. Let me do this here. And this is from earlier this morning that I created this meme. As you can see right there. As you can see in 2018, Michelle Obama ends up hugging George W. Bush. And there she is, and George W. Bush and Michelle Obama hugs and everything. What happens if Donald Trump loses this election and in 2028? For damn sure you will have a Republican if Kamala Harris is elected. You can't. One party just don't stay in power forever. The pendulum swings and it keeps swinging. And I would say that's probably going to swing back toward a Republican executive. I would say it's still too early to tell, but right now we're going into September. We're the Democratic convention, the Republican convention is over. The election is in full swing, and it's hard to say. Kamala Harris is not really talking to people in interviews. There's no policy stated out. But you know what? Donald Trump didn't have any policies in 2020 either. I believe they didn't have any policies pointed out in the 2020 election. So, when they are criticizing Kamala Harris for not having any policies, there was really no policy for Donald Trump either. So, those that throw stones at glass houses. So there is that. Also put into perspective that Donald Trump sounds tired. And he's not really keeping the crowd going like he's been able to. I mean, it was a time when Donald Trump spoke, even if you hated his damn guts, you wanted to hear what he had to say because he was very, very provocative and very interesting to listen to because he's a showman. He's still a showman, but he's run out of steam. He's older than he was back then. Not trying to age shame or anything like that, but he's older than he was. So he's tired and everything, and it's probably that's probably what it is, and probably he's it's hard to say. He may think he's losing the election. He may be discouraged. We don't know. I suspect it's probably age and what have you. And but here's the thing: Donald Trump loses this election. I don't think he'll run in 2028. But what could happen in the year 2028? You can have Tom Cotton again. Tom Cotton is to the right of Donald Trump. You can have Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, for damn sure, is to the right of Donald Trump. You could have someone like that. Candidates who are, I don't want to say dynamic, but dynamic enough. Lindsey Graham doesn't have a chance to become president. He's to the right of Trump, just on the foreign policy alone. I mean, they're all bad. Trump is bad too. I'm not trying to say Trump is good, but what I'm trying to say is that Donald Trump is not the most right-wing Republican that's ever existed on the face of planet Earth or in the history of the United States. In fact, he's probably one of the more liberal Republican presidents, probably closer to the Nixon-Eisenhower model than he is Reagan, Bush 1, and Bush 2. I said what I just said. He's closer to Nixon and Eisenhower than he is Reagan, Bush 1, and Bush 2. That's not to say they're still too far right for me. They're still too far right, especially Nixon. But what I'm trying to say is he's closer to that model than he is the Reagan Bush model. And that's where I am coming from right there. And that's where y'all need to keep in mind. And so what I'm also going to say that if, let's say, Tom Cotton becomes president in the 2028 election, he would do what he can to carry this country into fascism. Ron DeSantis would too. Someone like that. And right now, American liberals are too dumb to realize this. But once they realize what's going on, you'll have Donald Trump rehabilitated fairly quickly. And then you'll have, instead of Michelle Obama hugging George W. Bush like she did in 2018, you'll have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez by the year 2030 hugging on George W. Bush. Donald Trump. And that's what will happen. And that's basically my point right there. So, and you keep this shit going on, you're going to end up having some of our beloved fellow radicals, endorsing, not endorsing, hugging Marjorie Taylor Greene 20 years down the road if the country keeps going farther and farther and farther to the right. So now I'm getting a little bit hyperbolic. My point being, this is where we're headed. So we got to go and draw the line in the sand and tell these liberals, you need to wake up and smell this fucking coffee that's being brewed here. And that's what needs to be addressed. So it's not just George W. Bush that's done this today. I mean, don't get it twisted. Also the who else that endorsed really not a surprise, Kamala Harris was Mitt Romney. Now I'm not going to go focus too much on Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney, I actually, even though I would never support Mitt Romney, apparently Mitt Romney is trapped in a party he was never fond of to begin with. And all he has to do is back then was to not be in that party. And, apparently while he was the governor of Massachusetts, he was a fairly centrist governor by Republican standards. So I would, just to consider that, and then he ran for president and went further right. And it's not really who he is. He's too far right for me. He's too far right for this audience here, of course. But honestly, he's basically Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer. He's Dick Durbin. He's basically Gavin Newsom. He's another politician. He could pass for any other Democrat. Honestly, he's Hakeem Jeffries. He's any fill in the blank Democrat you can imagine. That's what he is in the Democratic Party. But he happens to be a Republican. And so I'm not going to go talk too much about him. But if I do, it'll be at another time, because he was never president. So, but he was mentioned. So that's why I gave him a brief mention. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, right there. Yeah. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna play a little bit. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. A little humorous one-liner from Jeb Bush that kind of humored me in 2016 when he was debating Donald Trump in the primaries. Okay, let's go ahead and do this here real quick. And we'll go ahead and do just that.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have the strength.
I'm at 42 and you're...
Yeah, you heard what he said. You're not going to be able to insult your way into the presidency. Well, that's exactly what he did in 2016. He insulted his way into the presidency. It was that part that might have been the best part of 2016, is the insulting his way into the presidency. That part was funny. I did laugh. I cracked up every time. So what I'm also going to do is I will play you some of the hits of how some people on the right did not like Donald Trump initially, and they ended up, some of them ended up changing their positions. So and then I'm going to go ahead and comment on each of these, because and as well as comment more on Bush, because I'm going to say this. I'll say this. If there's one thing that Donald Trump accomplished for the better, is he did destroy the Bush family's political influence. I can't for the life of me take that away from him. So actually, I'll tell you what, before I do that, we'll play a snippet from the debates in 2016 and the primaries. Give me just a quick moment here and we'll get started. All right, let me do that.
You'll have, and it doesn't work very well.
How tough is it
a
to
lot
take
of times
property from an elderly woman?
Let me talk. Quiet.
How
A
tough
lot
is
of
it?
times. That's all of his donors and special interests out there. So that's what it is. And by the way, let me just tell you, we needed tickets. You can't get them. You know who has the tickets I'm talking about to the television audience? Donors, special interests, the people that are putting up the money. So it is. The RNC told us we have all donors in the audience, and the reason they're not loving me, the reason they're not loving me is I don't want their money. I'm going to do the right thing for the American public. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And I'm the only one up here that can say that.
Okay. I remember when this debate took place in 2016. I watched it and I was highly amused. And what happened with that particular debate was that I remember Monday morning, I was driving to work. I was working in the evenings that time before I started working graveyard shift, my previous job. And I was listening to, I back when he was alive, I would listen to Rush Limbaugh just to hear what he'll have to say. And Rush Limbaugh was very angry with Donald Trump. He was just very angry. He said, "Yeah, he sounded like an unhinged Bernie Sanders supporter. We don't want that kind of rhetoric in our Republican Party. We want a genuine conservative movement." That's Rush Limbaugh. You get right there in a nutshell. So Rush Limbaugh actually did flirt with the Never Trump movement. He kind of flirted with that initially, but Rush Limbaugh is a robotic foot soldier, was a robotic foot soldier when he was alive, and then whatever Republicans in power, then he'll end up supporting it because Rush Limbaugh Rush Limbaugh, just like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and Sean Hannity, are all like little fucking robots. So that's what they do. They just take orders from the RNC. So anyway, here's something that I guess you need to listen to, and there's more to it than that. From Mark Levin, no less.
No, I back Cruz, and I'm going to continue to back Cruz. I am not voting for Donald Trump. Period.
And that's Mark Levin, one of the worst people back then on talk radio. And honestly, Jesse Kelly is actually worse than him. But but the point I'm trying to make is that's Mark Levin. I mean, he's worse than Rush Limbaugh was. He's worse than Sean Hannity. He's worse than Glenn Beck. He's just a loudmouth, asshole, neocon, warmongering piece of shit. So anyway, we'll let this asshole continue.
That coverage last night, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern, wasn't that a lot of fun? We didn't want to go off the air. Those of you who listened, when I got off the air, you should have been feeling pretty well because we could see the pattern developing. It could see that there was really no way for Hillary Clinton to win. And she lost. And I loved every minute of it.
Funny, because you probably got more in common with Hillary Clinton than you think. That's the thing about it. The Democratic Party so far to the right, they're actually entering Mark Levin territory, and Mark Levin is too fucking stupid to realize this. So Yeah, I just kind of wanted to point at that obvious, but he started off as a never Trumper, and he thinks that yelling at everyone makes him win arguments. And there are people out there that they think that yelling makes you win arguments, and yelling doesn't make you win arguments. Yelling, unless you're cogent, yelling usually makes you look like an idiot, And Mark Levin certainly is that. One of the worst people in the Trump administration was John Bolton. That was the swamp, part of the swamp he claimed he was trying to drain. Well, John Bolton was part of that swamp. Oh, so was Mike Pompeo. So was, various people that were neocons from the Bush Cheney years that Trump put back into the White House. Oh, anyway, let's see what John Bolton had to say about the year 2024 on who he's going to endorse. Okay, let me go ahead and start over here. Okay.
You said you're going to write someone in November.
That's what I did in 2020, and I'll do it again this November.
Who did you write in 2020? You've never revealed that before.
Well, I might as well say it now. I voted for Dick Cheney.
Wow.
Yep, he did. He voted for Dick Cheney, Mr. Mushroom Cloud Mustache Man. Yosemite Sam himself voted for fucking Dick Cheney.
Oh.
And I'll vote for Dick Cheney again this November.
You'll write in.
Yeah, he's an asshole. I mean, because, Dick Cheney's an asshole. Of course he's going to vote for Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
That's right.
What made you write him in?
Because he was a principled Reaganite conservative, and he still is. Age is no longer a factor in American presidential politics, so his age doesn't disqualify him. And I think he'd do an immensely better job than either Trump or Biden.
Okay, and I got something to say about that. The whole Reaganite conservatism. Well, here's the thing. Reagan was a shitty president. No wonder John Bolton like him. So that's why he likes Dick Cheney, because he's connected with Reaganism. And it was that Reagan legacy that kind of seeped into the George W. Bush presidency, and I hear some people say, that George W. Bush wasn't a real conservative. No, I beg to differ. He really was. That's my problem with him. So let's go ahead and play another video here, and we'll get started.
Well, it might be a bad time to be part of the GOP establishment. Now conservative talk show host and the star of all radio, Rush Limbaugh, ribbing the GOP establishment and sending a strong message.
Rush Limbaugh was the GOP establishment. He was the GOP establishment when he was alive, and his big, fat, rotting carcass in the grave is still the Republican establishment.
In the case of the anger on the Republican side propelling this primary season, everybody is saying it's irrational, it's kooky, it's irresponsible, it's insane. Nobody is saying, hey, why are you mad? What did we do to make them so mad? Maybe we need a seminar or two over here at some lobbyist's office to figure out why they're so mad at us. Why don't you people take a little time out? Instead of mischaracterizing the anger, why don't you follow your own guidelines and try to learn from it?
Now, during the 2016 campaign, when you listen to Rush Limbaugh, he actually was praising Ted Cruz to the sky over Donald Trump. He didn't overtly go against Trump as a never Trumper in the way Glenn Beck or Mark Levin did. But there were some subtle little jabs here and there where Rush Limbaugh he had some cogent criticisms of this aspect of Donald Trump and that aspect of Donald Trump. I mean, he was critical of Donald Trump on certain aspects of foreign policy and things of that way, and the fact that he was not really born of the conservative movement or what have you. So anyhow, we'll let the large obese one talk.
Why don't you try to ask yourself, what have you done that made everybody so mad?
The On the Record Politico panel is back. Boy, that's good.
And the thing about it is that the problem was people like Rush Limbaugh. I mean, Rush Limbaugh. Now, the Republicans who are legitimately mad at Trump being a thing, and I'm talking about those who are moderate Republicans, not the Republicans who are true Trump's right, who are part of the Never Trumper movement, but the Republicans who are more moderate that don't like Trump. What could have caused it? Well, it was people like Rush Limbaugh that created it. And to those who are to the right, y'all need to know, it was people like Rush Limbaugh that actually contributed to this brand called Trump. Because a lot of those Trump supporters ain't that bright. They hear him grunt and knuckle drag about immigrants, and, some of them being rapists and murderers and gang members and what have you. I mean, and the thing about it is these same assholes get mad when the liberals get angry. And here's where I'm on the side of the shit libs. When they're angry with these what we call the shit libs over some of the awful language Trump uses to describe, the immigrants that come here. And the thing about it is, I know that Donald Trump runs his mouth. He talks out of his asshole. He's a grifter. I understand that. And even the offensive stuff. I mean, the shit he said is offensive. I understand that. The thing about it is, what the shit lives don't understand is they're being trolled. Donald Trump will say what he can. If he wants to troll somebody, he will troll, and he knows how to troll people. So he got his right-wing base having an orgasm over these comments, and he had a lot of shit libs in tears over it. It's kind of as simple as that. And everybody allowed the man to control the narrative. I mean, and in 2016 he was laughing his way on how he manipulated everybody from across the political spectrum, and he did. Now let's talk about Ben Shapiro. That little pipsqueak moron. When he didn't back Trump in 2016, but he backed Trump in 2020. So we're going to go ahead and play it. Actually, this is 2020 Kyle responding to Ben Shapiro, and it was actually a pretty good response what he had. So this is why I'm actually playing it. So let me go ahead and do just that. So hold on. New Kyle sucks, but the classic Kyle is okay.
Shapiro officially endorsed Donald Trump. I want to play a clip of some of his reasons for you, and then I'm going to come back and break it down. We're going to go through some of his reasons. And
I was going to go and speed up Ben Shapiro's speed, but you will not be able to understand what Ben Shapiro is saying, because when Ben Shapiro is going, I mean, you can kind of understand what he's saying when his normal voice. But if I have to go speed it up, it'll be like, because, Ben Shapiro, it's Ben Shapiro with the way he talks. So anyway, we'll allow to continue.
And I'll weigh in with my 2 cents. A lot of you might be thinking, well, why does this even matter? Of course he's going to vote for Donald Trump. Duh, that's obvious. Well, he, in 2016, did not vote for Trump. He didn't vote for Trump. So, I think we all casually assumed, yes, he voted for Trump in 2016, and yes, he'd vote for Trump in 2020. But no, he didn't vote for Trump in 2016. So for him to announce it now is like, oh, okay, so you're not going to do what you did in 2016.
I'm actually not surprised that he didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I'm not surprised at all.
effectively. So, in other words, my point is, it is news a little bit more than people are giving it credit for. We know that Ben Shapiro's super right wing. That's obvious. But if he didn't vote for him in 2016, then yes, it is a little bit of an update here, and he's changed his approach in 2020. So without further ado, here are his reasons, and then we'll discuss.
I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I am voting for Donald Trump in 2020. There are 3 reasons I'm going to vote for Donald Trump in 2020 when I didn't 4 years ago. First, I was simply wrong about Donald Trump on policy. Second, I wasn't really wrong about Donald Trump on character, but whatever damage he was going to do has already been done, and it's not going to help if I don't vote for him this time. And third, most importantly, the Democrats have lost their minds. So, first of all, Donald Trump has governed pretty conservatively. I thought he would not be conservative in his governance. I was just wrong on that. Donald Trump radically cut regulation. You actually saw reductions in the number of man-hours dedicated to dealing with regulation for the first time in a long time under Donald Trump. He appointed originalist judges to the best of his ability. We're talking dozens of them, textualist, originalist judges who actually care about the role of the judiciary.
Yeah, and we were all the worse off for it. And no, they're not originalists. They're partisan culture warriors. Fuck you, Ben Shapiro.
Cut taxes, jogging the economy, raising it to heights not seen in half a century, the lowest unemployment rate in half a century, people having their wages rise at the bottom of the spectrum. He appointed.
That's a lie. That's a lie. It's a lie when Bidenomics have said it. They're like, Bidenomics is raising wages, and we're all that happy days are here again. It was a lie when they said that during this Biden presidency. It's a fucking lie when you say that about the Trump presidency, Ben Shapiro. It's a lie.
He appointed pro-life people to the executive branch and pursued pro-life policy via executive order. He dumped out of the idiotic Paris Accords, which were.
It wasn't idiotic. It wasn't. It was, and we have a climate crisis, you moron.
Useless and counterproductive. He dumped the even more idiotic and evil Iran deal, which gave money to the Iranian mullahs to use for terrorism, as John.
You're a moron, Ben Shapiro. That was the best thing Obama did. And the reason why we have a problem with Iran is that too many people were listening to people like you. Trump was trying to sit there and suck off of people like you instead of rejecting you.
John Kerry freely admitted Donald Trump crushed ISIS. He killed al-Baghdadi. He killed Qasem.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. It was Russia, Syria, and Iran that finished off ISIS. So it wasn't Donald Trump. Stop lying.
Idiotic and evil Iran deal, which gave money to the Iranian mullahs to use for terrorism, as John Kerry freely admitted. Donald Trump crushed ISIS. He killed al-Baghdadi. He killed Qasem Soleimani. Donald Trump.
Yeah, killing off Qasem Soleimani was also wrong, and it was a war crime, by the way. Of course, you love war crimes, don't you? That's why you suck Benjamin Netanyahu's cock, right? That's why you masturbate to him, you little asshole.
Trump is the first president of my lifetime not to start any new wars, which is a kind of big thing. He moved.
You love wars, you little asshole.
The American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. He brokered the first.
And that's what, moving the embassy to Jerusalem is part of the reason why we saw October 7th happen, you little asshole.
Meaningful peace deals there in 3 decades in the Middle East. He cracked down on China in unprecedented ways. He's resisted using the federal government to control everybody's life during COVID. That's a big thing.
If you're talking about the tariffs on steel from China, that was actually kind of based on Trump. But you know what? You don't believe in that. You believe in free trade all over the place at the expense of American workers, Ben Shapiro.
This is the biggest government power grab of my lifetime, and Trump refused to do it. Donald Trump restored due process on college campuses because he actually cares about due process, or at least his Secretary of Education does. Contrary to
he tried to actually crack down on free speech on campus, you asshole.
Popular opinion, Donald Trump has not actually threatened the institutions. The fact is that Donald Trump may have been hemmed in by his own people. Whatever the rationale, he has not threatened the press. He has not threatened the legislature. He has not used the executive branch in nearly as powerful ways as Barack Obama did. Trump has.
He's tried. Yes, he has. Actually, a lot of presidents have abused the executive in in a toxic way, including Trump.
Hasn't been as conservative as I would like on everything. He's spent way too much money, like oodles too much money. I actually care about that stuff. His perspective on trade is a zero-sum game. I think it's wrong-headed. He still signed into law the USMCA, which is a pretty good trade deal. But these are problems I've had with a variety of Republicans, including George W. Bush. Trump has governed overall in a far more conservative fashion than W on policy. He is the most conservative president of my lifetime on policy.
Now, that video goes on for like 8 to 10 minutes or something like that. But you get the gist of it here. He lays out his 3 big reasons why he's voting for Trump, and then he goes into some specifics. So what's fascinating is this. Virtually all of his reasons for voting for Trump this time around, they're almost all why I'm so against Trump, why I dislike Trump. He's actually right on the main claim being, oh, Donald Trump is the most conservative president of my lifetime. He's either 100% correct, or you could say it's like a tie between Trump, George W. Bush. I don't know how old he is, so I don't know how far to go back here, but he is incredibly conservative. And, I would argue one of the reasons why Trump is so down in the polls, and it looks worse for him in 2020 than it did in the 2016 election, is because of the stuff that Ben Shapiro's listing. Because when he was running in 2016, he didn't position himself as a hardcore conservative Republican. He positioned himself as a populist.
And that's the thing about Trump. Trump, he campaigned as a populist in 2016. Somehow in 2020 and in 2024, he's campaigning as the same ass clown Republicans as all the other Republicans that makes the Republican Party absolutely, just cringe. So, and that's what it comes down to. So, let's see. We'll go with another one, and there'll be some more commentary afterwards. So, this one is from this one. Forgive me, it is a Sam Cedar one, but I still need to. It's regarding Glenn Beck with regard to Trump and all of that. So let's go ahead and hear what he has to say.
Let's talk about this. Here's Glenn Beck, and this is what is. I mentioned that that John McCain is paying for this for Sarah Palin, but not from the way that he should have been paying over the past 8 years. But let's start with Donald Trump, because we're going the gamut here, folks. Glenn Beck, who went all in on the no Trump, and he has to go this way. Now, of course, Glenn Beck is also, this is like, I remember taking a film philosophy class in college, and watching, I think it was second Godfather, and watching it this is before VCRs and this and that. We actually had a film canister of it, and watching it in a very small classroom where the screen is that big. It is an incredibly emotional movie, and I walked out of there just like, for the next 4 or 5 hours, I was like, God, my life is falling apart. And I just realized at one point, no, my life isn't falling apart. That movie was just so depressing.
It's an amazing movie.
And I feel like that's what Glenn Beck is going through right now. He's just like, watch this movie of just everything around him is falling apart. And here he is.
Donald Trump is the face of the GOP. Well, that makes us crony capitalists. It makes us wafflers. It makes us pretty racist.
The very things that you, Glenn Beck, have been, defending all these years.
Makes us big government guys. It just you
claim to be for small government, but yet this is what you advocate. You advocate big government conservatism. You don't want the government to go and provide medical care for all, or provide free college for all, or make us a normal country like, like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, or even any country in continental Europe that provides some basic necessities that make a good society. No, but you want the government to, do things like invade other countries. You want to back countries that commits genocide. You want to go and use the government to execute people. You want to use the government to torture Muslims in Guantanamo Bay. You wanted to use the government to go and spy on us, U.S. citizens. You wanted all these things when George W. Bush became president, when he was the president. But once Barack Obama became president and he was continuing it, then you found it all of a sudden very offensive. And of course, we know why, because you're a partisan hack. So, and you're kind of on that track, and you realize after you sat there and sucked off Ted Cruz in 2016, you did a little bit of a makeover, and you didn't want to look like you're a Bush Cheney apologist like you were doing up to the year 2016. But to me, the vomit that you spew on your show is still regurgitated 1993 Rush Limbaugh talking points. You fat face fuck.
Name it. It makes us that. Well, I'm none of those things. And so I can't say, well,
you might not be a racist. I might give you that. But you are a defender of oligarchy. You are a foreign policy neocon. You are a crony capitalist, and that makes you bad enough. And you are a proponent of these right-wing culture wars. Fuck you.
Hey, well, these are my friends because that's my future. I won't tolerate it. I don't want my children to look at that man and say, yeah, he's my president. I won't have that. I will not endorse it. I will not tolerate it.
But now he sucks off of Donald Trump every chance he could get.
And I refuse to have my children think that I tolerated that. I won't tolerate it. For my children's sake.
Pause it for a second. Now,
I just realized that Glenn Beck is the neocon version of Bill Maher. You got the shit lib Bill Maher. You got the neocon Glenn Beck. I just realized that. Scary.
I want you to listen. First off, his assessment of the Republican Party, I think, spot on. But putting that aside, I have not listened to this entire clip. Okay. Now, listen to what he's saying here. He's talking about his kids. I don't want my kids to see this. I don't want my kids to see that I would not just not endorse it, but tolerate it.
But guess what? He ended up tolerating it. So guess that he kind of just backtracked on his words, which kind of leads me back to my original point. When the liberals end up supporting, being glad and cheerful about George W. Bush endorsing Kamala Harris, it normalizes that right-wing swamp. And here's the thing. I want you to think about this for a moment. Notice that just study how these liberals out there, these shit libs, these vote blue no matter who, blue MAGA, notice how they will look at George W. Bush, and they will treat George W. Bush in a more kindly manner, in a more charitable way than they do Ralph Nader or your typical Bernie Sanders supporter. Well, I'm not going to say Bernie Sanders per se. I'm going to say Bernie Sanders supporters, because that's going to be many of us in 2016, 2020 that we may have walked away from Bernie Sanders, but we were part of that movement. I have to go and mention the BernieBros. We, whether we want to realize it or not, the majority of us who are listening here were those people. I know I was. The Democrats have more respect for a never Trumper Republican than they do Ralph Nader supporters and Bernie Sanders supporters, or anybody on the left, or what they perceive as the left. Another sign of punching left. And that's my point right there. And that's why I showed all these clips, because this is not anything to celebrate about. This is not to celebrate and be gleeful about. But you're going to have a lot of liberals being like, oh, George W. Bush, he's now with us. I hated the Bush family from the very first time I voted for Michael Dukakis in 1988. Not that Michael Dukakis was great, but I hated the Bush family from day one. There is a video, and now that I think about it, is from Ben Norton about the Bush family, history of the Bush family, that I am going to highly recommend. I'm not going to play it here because I think it's like, I forgot how long it is, but it's a good video about the history of the Bush family. Talks about how they talks about how fucking evil they are, all of them. Going back to the days where they collaborated with Hitler, to the days they ended up being a deep part of the just webbed into the fabric of the deep state that we have today. And so, it was people like the Bush family that paved the way toward Trumpism. So, for all the people, all these shit libs out there who suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, they could take off their pink pussy hats and think, well, gee, I guess this is what caused the Trump thing to begin with. But they're not going to listen. They're going to be impressed when Ellen DeGeneres and George W. Bush hangs out at a baseball game. That's what they'll do every time. So, hold on a second. I don't think this picture is an AI picture. It does look kind of AI. But anyway, my point being is that the bar gets set lower and we get more right wing. And the more right wing we become, the less chance we're going to get where we're going to have real workers' rights. And it's gotten to the point where the Republican Party is looked upon as a party of the working class. And these fucking Republican politicians are not going to do anything for the working class people of this country. You think the Republican Party's out there to protect your Social Security or protect your Medicare and all your other entitlements? Absolutely not. Neither are the Democrats. But I am so tired of, because the Democrats fail the American people, that somehow that the Republicans do a little bit of a makeover on their public image, that somehow they're going to be the ones that are going to do all these wonderful things, and they're not. Like, for example, Robert Kennedy as director of the CIA and Tulsi Gabbard as a possible FBI director. One, I believe it when I see it, for starters. And two, even if it takes place, I don't know if they would be what they claimed they were going to be. If they're going to be anything like what the Democrats are. We saw what happened, we saw what happened with Elizabeth Warren and AOC and John Fetterman, and how they have kind of failed us. So, all these people, even people who are looking at it, they're not necessarily on the Trump bandwagon, but trying to be open-minded and trying to look at Robert Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard as possibly being able to be the good cop in the Trump administration if he's elected. I don't think that that's going to work at all. It isn't. If we're building a third-party movement, we can't sit there and say the Democrats are bad and kind of just wink at the Republicans and act like, well, they're kind of sort of okay. I mean, and there's a little bit of that going on within our left. And it's not that they want Republicans in charge, but they have felt so betrayed by the Democrats that it kind of looks that way. And so you get demagogues sitting there accusing many of us who are independent of really doing the bidding of the Republicans. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I want to see a 30-party movement supplant the two-party system and to do positive things for working class people. I want to see the two-party system collapse. I want to see multiple parties. I want to see, ranked choice voting. So we can have true choices out there. So anyway, I just wanted to go and make that rant and everything. But George W. Bush is not my friend. He's not my ally. I will not stand shoulder to shoulder with George W. Bush. Liz Cheney is not my friend. She's not my ally. I will not stand shoulder to shoulder with her. Bill Kristol is not my friend. He's not my ally. I will not stand shoulder to shoulder with Bill Kristol. I will not stand shoulder to shoulder with the very people that created the mess that we're in today. It will not happen under my watch, and it shouldn't happen under yours either, is what I'm trying to say, basically. So I just wanted to go and state that real quick, and, just state that. Now, announcements I'm going to make real quick. Right now, I decided to do this because it became news to me, and I felt like it needed to be discussed before it becomes old news real quick. Plus, I didn't get a chance to do Braglands earlier this evening, which me and Jimmy were going to make up for it. It'll be on at 5 p.m. tomorrow. And then after that, I'll get a chance to go and watch Extra Bull Alive because Blue Moon Red Wine, our friend Lucy, friend of the Willie Bragg Show, friend of Extra Bull Alive, will be guest on Extra Bull Alive tomorrow. So be sure to watch that. And Warren's on the chat line here. So he's going to be on tomorrow morning extra at 10 a.m. So there is that as well. I'm off tonight, obviously. So I will be doing my regular commentary at 8 p.m. on Friday. So this is sort of my makeup one. This is considerate of my makeup one for today. That's really an 8 o'clock West. Hey, you get what I'm saying. It'll all kind of work itself out. I will talk to you all on the chat line very briefly, and then I'm going to try to get some sleep. Okay. All right. Let's do this. Okay. All right. Okay. And we have here Warren's on the chat line. How are you? It's all circus, like the crabs in my pants. I mean, what? All right, let's see. Debbie one that lives over with her snack cakes. Let's see. The Tanis Santos and Daniel Berry Sports Highlight says, yo. Nixon started the EPA. Maybe Trump with JFK is going for that vibe. Interestingly enough, I've had a discussion when my parents were here. They're still here. They're here next week. About universal health care, Watergate, Nixon, and Ted Kennedy. I wish Watergate never happened, and that Nixon didn't step down and he served his full term. And I'll tell you why. Not because I don't like Nixon, but Nixon was the last liberal to be president in many ways, according to Michael Moore. And Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts, who favored Medicare for all, single payer, and Richard Nixon, who wanted something that was similar to the Affordable Care Act, got together and they were talking about creating a national healthcare system. And the healthcare system that they were going to create looks something along the lines similar to what they have in Holland and places like Germany today, which basically is a more glorified, public, and generous version of Obamacare in places like Germany, places like Luxembourg, places like the Netherlands. It's not perfect, but it's better than what we have here. Australia has something kind of like that as well. They did have a full Medibank system, fully single payer, but then they kind of crept some private insurance systems in there and all of that. I hope that they reverse that and make it fully public again. But suffice to say, Nixon stepped down because of Watergate. The whole chaos of the Watergate thing made us all forget about universal health care for many years. So much so that the Medicare for All movement died until Bernie Sanders came up. And even with Bernie Sanders, it was like a little bit too late. So, and that's where we're at right now. I just kind of thought I mentioned that as well. With EPA, if we didn't have an EPA under Nixon when he created it in 1970, an EPA today would be considered so radical, and it would be considered something that would be almost virtually impossible to create. That's how far to the right we have come in America. I'll be hugging Boebert, but for different reasons. There were people getting upset with her wearing a bathing suit with showing a little skin, a little bit of tattoo, and all that. I have no problems with the way she was dressed up. I have a problem with Lauren Boebert's politics, not the fact that she was wearing a bikini. I mean, I hate her politics, but she's got a nice body. She just needs to shut up about the politics. Let's see. Nice smiley. Okay. All right. And how are you today? Choosy Heretics chooses Carnation Revolutions now. Hope you're well. It's okay. Jeshua is Ben Shapiro. And Johnny Ringo says here, only dogs will hear him if you sped Benny up. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking through here. All right. Let's see what this person has to say here. First time tuning in, says Kyle Vin DCV. I was absolutely surprised with G.W. Bush endorsement of Harris title. Any links to the article or video? I could, let me write a little note. I could put that down in probably the next 35-40 minutes when I finish streaming here. So article and video, Ben Norton, because I'm also going to put a Ben Norton video. Okay. GW Harris. Okay, gotcha. All right. Let's see here. The only thing that the establishment, the only thing that is anti-establishment about Trump is that he says the quiet bit out loud. Choosy says, I'm still waiting for Jimmy to declare that I'm cooler than Carl Jung. But the bitch artist who lied about seeing mosaics that didn't exist. Okay. I'm just kind of scrolling casually. I'm going to try to make sure everybody's covered. It's this AI art, says Casey McCoy, and I know we were referring to earlier. I said it looks like AI art, but I don't think it quite is. Good cop versus bad cop. Both of these parties are trash, And we need to convince people of that. And it's kind of hard to do that sometimes. So anyway, I am about ready to log off because I got to go to sleep. I got some things I got to do in the morning. Anyway, so as I said, I apologize for no Braglands earlier today on Tuesday. So come back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Braglands. And that's with Jimmy and myself. And on Friday, the Willie Bragg Show at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, remember, if you like what you heard, please press like and comment any way you disagree with what I have to say. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to create your own platform and utilize it because we're, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Also, remember to reject corporate media and to subscribe to the Willie Bragg Show on all my following platforms that you'll see. You'll see up there and everything when I do the fill in the description box shortly afterwards. And let's see what else I'm going to say before we part company for the time being. Yes, be sure to work toward pardoning and freeing Ed Snowden, fully pardoning Julian Assange, free Palestine, free healthcare for all, and free speech absolutism for all as well. Thank you all. Thank you all, and y'all have a great evening. I will see you all soon. Good night.